Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we got a 7-game NBA slate. This is the slate I really like, though we do have a ton of injuries on this one. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Hopefully everybody did good yesterday. Uh, we did good in NBA and in hockey, and hopefully in college basketball, but hopefully today we'll do good NFL, NBA, and hockey again. So we also did really good yesterday on sportsbook, so we'll have to keep that up hopefully. With that said, let's get into the slate here. So let's get into the injury report. So for the Pelicans, McCollum is out and Jones is questionable. For the Pistons, Burks and Ivy are both questionable. Durant is out. For the Bulls, Caruso is questionable. For the Nuggets, Murray is out. For the Heat, Hero is out and Jimmy Butler is questionable. For the Spurs, Trey Jones is questionable. For the Suns, Booker is doubtful and Gordon is questionable. For the Timberwolves, Edwards is questionable and Reed is questionable. For the Trailblazers, Brogdon, Simmons, and Scoot Henderson are all out. For the Lakers, LeBron is questionable and Vincent and Vanderbilt are out. So let's go ahead and get into the uh, individual positions here. So we'll have our FanDuel after the DraftKings. Looking at the point guards, we'll start with Luka. Obviously, he has monster upside as always. Though he's had some floor games recently, which is hurting his fantasy output, but he's definitely capable of monster games. This is a good matchup for him against a team that's got lots of injuries. I look for him to get a triple double here and have a huge game, though he is going to be hard to roster at the price point. Shea Alexander also in play today. He's played very well since being back from his injuries a few games ago, and he's had 3 straight 50 fantasy point games. He's playing well and having fun. This matchup isn't as tough as it should be considering the Suns haven't been at full strength all year, and while he's also the only guy really for his team doing anything, so he's putting up absolutely monster stats, scoring and otherwise. So he's a definitely great option on the slate. Kyrie Irving is also very interesting today. He's played very well as of late. His price has dropped a few $100s here as well, and he's been over 42 fantasy points in all but one game since he's had a couple games early in the year. He has nice potential in a faster paced game here. I really like his upside. Obviously, if he can get some more assists, that would definitely boost him on this slate as well, but he's been playing well, so it's hard to ignore that. Then we'll look at Bradley Beal, who is kind of a core play for me today. Um, I should note that SGA was very close to being a core play on the slate as well, but he's still pricey. But for Bradley, he's been playing only 2 games so far this season, but he's ramping up his minutes. The last game he played 32. If he plays anywhere close to 30 minutes again today, he should be able to pay off here at this price point. I imagine his price will go up once he gets fully healthy, but this is a still pretty good price point for him and a good matchup for him to do pretty well in. Then we're going to look at Mr. Conley from Minnesota. Now, Conley has a safe floor but a low ceiling. That's that he's cheap and helps you pay up other places. He's been pretty consistent lately, so that gives him some upside. And if Edwards were to miss, then his usage would definitely get a boost. And then Kobe White also in play for Chicago. He's played fairly well most of the season, but he's kind of the opposite of Conley, where he has a high ceiling and a low floor. That said, this matchup should give him the upside type of game, and he's been over 30 fantasy points in 2 straight, and his price has come down a little bit as well, so that gives him some more upside and potential. You can also consider Killian Hayes if Ivy and Burks is out, D'Angelo Russell, Reggie Jackson, Steph Curry, and then I'm going to talk about Skylar Mays real quick because uh, he's going to likely be the starter for Portland at point guard or shooting guard, and he's been playing uh, just only a few minutes in most of the games up until the last game where he played 37 with Brogdon being out, and he scored 41 fantasy points. So a lot of people are going to chase him today, but bear in mind his price shot up by $2,000, so he's going to be hard to roster considering the fact that he's high risk from that perspective. He does have an easier matchup against the Lakers, though, so that is giving him some ability, but he's still pretty risky on the slate, I think. Looking at his shooting guards, Kyrie Irving and Bradley Beal can also play these positions, but we'll look at Zach LaVine here for Chicago. He's played, inconsistent throughout the season, but he has some good upside games, and his price is still pretty good. Uh, Obviously, the floor is a little bit lower than I'd like, but he does have a lot of potential and a pretty good matchup here against Detroit. And this is, the type of matchup I like to typically use him in, so I think he's a viable option here. Jalen Green for Houston also in play for the Rockets. He's been pretty consistent for most of the season. He's had a couple off games, but most of the games he's been really good. and he's one of the safer plays on the Rockets. If you think they can hang with Denver, then he'll be somebody that would definitely play pretty well. Uh, and the last 2 seasons, he's played Denver 7 times. He's had 4 big games, and so he's definitely capable in this matchup. Then we'll look at D'Angelo Russell um, for the Lakers. Now he's got a favorable match against Portland today, and if LeBron or Anthony Davis were to sit again, that would give him a usage boost, which he's taken advantage of the last few times this season already with Davis being out. I expect there's a potential at least that LeBron sits today, and if that's the case, then he's definitely gonna have some upside in this matchup, especially in a favorable up-tempo game where not a whole lot of defense will be played. Obviously, you can consider Skylar Mays at this position as well, and then Grayson Allen, Brandon Ingram, and Cade Cunningham. Grayson Allen is kind of determined if Gordon misses and does Booker. Looking at our small forwards, Levine can also play at small forward. Then we'll look at DeMar DeRozan for Chicago. Now, he's been a very consistent player for most of the season. His floor has been around 30 fantasy points, which he's actually been over every single game except for this Denver game. So he's got a good matchup here tonight against Detroit, and he's had 2 really good games the last 2. He tends to really turn it up in the fourth quarter to try to help his team win. Obviously, they have been inconsistent this season, but he's not the reason that they lose, that's for sure, because he plays pretty well. So uh, he's a great option for kind of a middle value option to kind of round out your lineups, especially if you have a few 7,000 or so left over and you need 1 or 2 more players. He's definitely one to fit in. Then we'll look at Lou Dort for Oklahoma City. Now he's kind of a contrarian option today. Obviously, he has a low floor and high ceiling, but somebody for this Thunder team's got to start doing something else outside of SGA. But I think he's probably the most capable one today, as he's got good defensive attributes, and that's helping him in the fantasy perspective. But and he's been scoring some points in some games, so he's definitely capable. It's just getting him in the right situation, and this is actually a pretty good situation for him. So he'll probably play good defense and have some opportunity to get some buckets. Then we'll look at Dylan Brooks uh, for Houston. He's one of the other guys for Houston I do like in the top matchup. Um, Obviously, Houston is a tougher play today because of the matchup against Denver, but he's definitely somebody that has some potential. He does have a high floor, high ceiling, and a low floor. His floor is really low, in fact, but he is capable of good games occasionally. And if he does play well, then he could be on a perfect lineup. But he's definitely high risk on this particular slate. Then we'll look at Kyle Anderson for Minnesota. Now he's been pretty solid so far this season, though he has a sub 20 floor. However, if Edwards were to miss today, that would give him a boost, and so that would give him some upside in this matchup. Obviously, his minutes would probably increase as a result, but he's kind of only in play if Edwards gets a big, is ruled out. But I think that's possible today. So I wanted to mention him as a decent option at this position and at power forward. Looking at Bates Diop for the Suns, now he's actually been pretty good as he's come into the starting lineup after the last 4 games, and he's played over 20 minutes in each one. The last 2 he's played over 30 minutes. As long as Booker or Beal is out, then he'll continue to get pretty good minutes and have some usage opportunities. He definitely does carry some risk because he's not a huge scoring option, but he's been getting enough rebounds and assists and stuff that have really helped him kind of be a pretty good fantasy output option, though he is high risk as he is a kind of value play that doesn't get a lot of usage. So also consider Brandon Ingram, Ozzer Thompson, Grayson Allen, and LeBron at this position as well. Then we'll look at power forwards, and Durant comes into play as a great option against Oklahoma City, his former team, who he tends to do really well against. He's played every game this season, unlike Beal and Booker, and he's the focal point of offense, regardless pretty much of who plays. He's played very well. Obviously, if he has one of Beal or Booker on the floor as well, he actually has more upside as a result. But he's playing extremely well, and he's been close to some double doubles the last few games. So I think he's definitely capable of that today, especially in a plus matchup against a team that's going to shoot a lot of jump shots. So I really do like his upside here. Aaron Gordon also in play for Denver. Now he does carry a high risk, high reward factor here because he does have a low floor, but he's had 4 straight 40 fantasy point games. He's playing very well with three double doubles in that stretch, and if he's playing really well, then that's definitely gives him a lot of viability. It's interesting that he's kind of boomed up since Jamal Murray's been hurt, so I guess he's trying to take some more of the role, but from a scoring perspective, as you can see, he's been over double digits in all 4 games. So I think he definitely has some potential here, though his price has come up some, so that is a concern. Then we'll look at Draymond Green for Golden State. Now he's got a favorable matchup here against Minnesota, and he's been obviously has a big ceiling and low floor. He's had some big ceiling games earlier this season already, so he's definitely capable. But he's missed some games too, and his minutes are not nearly as consistent as they used to be. But that said, he is a guy that fills up the stat sheet most games, and if he can get double figures in points, which he's not done in the last 2 games, then he'll definitely have some potential to pay off at this position. And then we'll look at Isaiah Stewart um, for Detroit. He's got a favorable matchup here against Chicago. He's been inconsistent this season, but when uh, Durant has been out, he played really well against the Warriors and scored 40 fantasy points. So obviously, that's just 1 game, but he definitely gets a usage bump and a rebounding bump if Durant is ruled out. So or when Durant is out, and he is out today. So we'll have to see if he can continue that, especially in a decent matchup here against Chicago, who's not really been great defensively. You can also put Kyle Anderson and uh, and Bates die up at this position. You could also consider Carl Towns, DeMar DeRozan, and Nazir Thompson at this position as well. Moving in our centers, we'll start with Bam, who's the most expensive center I like today a lot. Bam has been very good the last few games, especially with the injuries pile up from Miami. Hero is out, and Butler is questionable. So if Butler was to miss again, then Bam would probably be a must play on the slate. But obviously, he has price has come up quite a few dollars as a result of the situations. But that said, he's a great option on the slate. He's got double double potential. He's actually had 2 monster games rebounding wise the last 3, and he has really nice upside in this matchup. So I think he's a viable option and somebody that's capable of having a solid game in this position. But if Butler was to miss again, obviously that would give him a boost in usage. Looking at Sengun for the Rockets, he's been a guy that's really been fun this season to roster. He's had a pretty good ceiling and a pretty good floor, so he's not hurting us when he doesn't have a monster game, as he's paying off. But he's been scoring efficiently and getting lots of rebounds, and he's also trying to get more assists, which really are giving him a big fantasy point boost when he's able to do that. The price here is pretty good, though he does have a tough matchup against Jokic, but I could see him trying to emulate some of what Jokic is doing this season. So obviously he's not nearly as good as Joker, but if he can stay in the game, then he'll be in play. But he's a high risk play in this situation. We'll look at Vucevic for Chicago. Now he's been somewhat weirdly inconsistent this season so far. His floor is pretty good in the mid 30s for the most part, but he's had a couple really questionable games, and his rebounding's been all over the place. Just like Chicago, he's been inconsistent, but he is a scoring guy, and he also has 3-point shooting aspects. And he's got a plus matchup against Detroit, who really doesn't have anybody that can stop him in this situation. So I'm sure Bagley will come in and play at center for them, but I think Vucevic should be able to dominate this game and hopefully get a bunch of rebounds in the process. DeAndre Ayton looks like a very interesting play today for Portland with all the injuries to the team. Somebody's going to have to take over and get some usage here, and he's definitely a prime candidate to do so. He's had uh, double doubles in almost every game this season, with the exception of a few games where he didn't get the points. But he should have the opportunity today to have max minutes and have all the opportunity to get a double double here. If he does that, then he'll definitely have some potential to pay off. And then we'll look at, last but not least, Nurkic for Phoenix. Obviously, he's been pretty solid throughout the season, especially with all the injuries the Suns have had. He's been a pretty good offensive weapon on certain games, at least. With him and Durant, his usage has gone up as a result. He's also been getting good rebounds and assist numbers, which are really helping his fantasy output. So I do like him here, though if Beal does play, then that could hurt him a little bit, but he's still playing well enough that he's hard to avoid simply because of that. And he's only had 1 game, I think, that's been really bad so far this season. That was against the Spurs. So he's got a good matchup against the Thunder, who don't really have a big guy who can slow him down. So Draymond Green and Isaiah Stewart are also available at this position. So let's go and get into our FanDuel plays here. And let's pull this over here. There we go. And so for FanDuel, we have Kyrie Irving and SGA the top options. Obviously, both these guys have a lot of upside. Jalen Green, Mike Conley, and Reggie Jackson are all a little bit underpriced for these matchups, so I do think they are great options on the slate. Looking at our shooting guards, Kyrie Irving can also play here. Klay Thompson's a little bit cheap on FanDuel, though he does carry some risk at the even at the price, because he is somewhat shooting dependent. Dylan Brooks is a little bit underpriced, and Grayson Allen is in play if Booker remains out, and also Eric Gordon's out. Lou Dort has some utility here, though he does carry some risk, as does Jalen Green, who's a pretty good price point on FanDuel. Looking at our small forwards, Kevin Durant is a great option. Kyle Anderson will be in play if Edwards is to miss. Uh, Lou Dort can fit in here as well. Jeremy Grant seems a little bit underpriced here on FanDuel, especially with all the injuries. His usage should go up today. And then Dylan Brooks and Grayson Allen both have some potential at this position as well. Looking at our power forwards, you can throw Durant, Kyle Anderson there as well as Jeremy Grant, but also Bates Diop has some opportunity for the Suns if you want to pay down for somebody at this position. He's definitely somebody to consider. Draymond Green is a little bit underpriced on FanDuel and has some potential, as is Isaiah Stewart. Looking at our centers, Nurkic, Bam, Aiton, and Vucevic are all very similarly priced, other than Bam. He's more expensive. But all of them have some good upside in these matchups. I do like Bam a lot if Butler does end up sitting again. So, with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.